Why an article in Sports Illustrated on Aaron Donald should have Rams fans feeling, well, a little uneasy.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, your team every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure that you click that subscribe button in your podcast feed and, of course, on your Locked On Rams YouTube channel as well, if you'd like to look and see what we're talking about every once in a while as well. So we're going to talk about Aaron Donald coming up here in just a little bit. Plus, we'll talk about something that Les Snead said a couple of weeks ago about knowing your window and where the Rams are in that window right now. And then at the end, we will talk a little bit about what else is going on in the NFC West, specifically whether or not Deshaun Watson makes some sense up in Seattle with the Seahawks. But let's get right to it. Let's get right to it with the Aaron Donald situation. My name is Travis Rogers. I host the Rams pregame show, halftime show, postgame show on their flagship station, ESPN LA 710. So thanks for making us Locked On Rams a part of what you do. So Sports Illustrated, Greg Bishop has a piece on Aaron Donald today that is really interesting. It's very good. As if you are a Rams fan, and presumably if you're listening to this, you are, I would highly recommend it. It's excellent. But it talks about Aaron Donald and his decision to whether or not he wants to come back and play NFL football next season, the 2022 season and beyond. Obviously, the Rams have made it no secret about the fact that they want to do a new deal with Aaron Donald, that he would be very highly compensated, that would give the Rams some flexibility, all of those sorts of things. Of course, this goes back to something that was talked about right before the Super Bowl, where he mentioned to NBC, Rodney Harrison specifically, Michelle Tafoya commented on it as well, that if they won that game, then maybe that would be the end of the line for Aaron Donald. Then, of course, we had Sean McVay, run it back, right, during the championship celebration at the Coliseum. Aaron Donald kind of hinted that he wanted to run it back. He's talked about if Odell Beckham Jr. comes back, if Von Miller comes back, then he would be intrigued by the possibility of running it back. He's been in the weight room with the Rams. He's been working out with Andrew Whitworth. We've heard reports of that. So there are a lot of indicators that he, in fact, is coming back. Here's what the story points out that I think is very interesting. He hasn't said he's coming back. Now, he hasn't said that he's not. He hasn't said that he's going to go do something else no matter what comes up next. But he hasn't said, oh, I'm going to play football for the Los Angeles Rams in the 2022 season. We're going to run it back. We're going to try to defend our Super Bowl title. I want to go and accomplish this, that, and the other thing that I have left to do in my career. He hasn't said that yet. And one of the reasons that Greg Bishop lays out in this piece in Sports Illustrated that I find particularly interesting is probably why he hasn't said it. And one of the things that I don't know if there is a number. I don't know if there is something that Sean McVay or Les Snead or Stan Kroenke or anybody else could say to him that would rectify the issue that might be in the way of this. Now, again, this is a little bit speculation. This is kind of reading some tea leaves here. But Aaron Donald has not had a chance to spend as much time with his two older children as he would like. They live in Pittsburgh. They do not live here in Los Angeles with him. He's obviously very close to them. He obviously misses them dearly. And he also is trying to become one of the greatest football players of all time, if he hasn't done that already. Here's where it gets complicated. Can you do both? Can you be the greatest defensive player of all time, which he is getting very close to being, right? There are a handful of guys on the list. There's, Lawrence Taylor obviously jumps right out to Reggie White. There's some very, very good ones. Aaron Donald's in that class. And a few more seasons like he has had, and he may be the answer to the question, who's the greatest defensive player of all time? Oh, that's Aaron Donald. We're close. Aaron Donald also has made enough money that if he decides he doesn't want to play football anymore, he doesn't have to do it for economic reasons. Aaron Donald has been a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Aaron Donald is now a Super Bowl champion. And you read some of the quotes in this story about how he misses his kids, about he misses some of the moments that are coming along with it, and the price that he pays to be all of those things that we just listed. Those two things are not compatible for a super long time. If you're a parent, you understand the dilemma, right? You understand the push and pull of what that is, which is I need to do what I do to make a living, to put food on my table, to pay the rent, to buy food and clothes, all of the stuff that we have to do to make the world go around, right? You also understand that you want to be at the recital. You want to be at the Little League game. You want to be at the parent-teacher conference. You want to be there when they come home from school. You want to be able to, tuck them in at night, give them baths, all of the things that little kids, do, and that you only get a very short window of time to do those things. If you didn't have the economic concerns, how much time would you spend to do that? And what if you've already accomplished everything there is to accomplish in your profession? What would you choose to do? Especially if the absence of your time from your children was something that ate away at you. That's the decision that he's struggling with. That's one of the factors in this that is so complicated. I thought there was a very interesting quote from Sean McVay in the story, and it says, "Greatness comes with a price. I've witnessed what it takes for him." Okay? That, I think, is an incredibly insightful thing from Sean McVay. It's an incredibly accurate statement from Sean McVay. You're not Aaron Donald is Aaron Donald because he has been given gifts from wherever those things come from the heavens, from your parents, from just the random genetic draw, whatever it is. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's quick, he's smart. He's all of these things that you need to be a football player. But what he has also been given is the willingness to work at a level that most of us are not. To sacrifice things that we would like to do otherwise, to sacrifice time with people that you love. I've witnessed what it takes for him, and it takes a lot to be great. That's what that he can't be Aaron Donald part-time. You have to be in that weight room, the dungeon, as he calls it, constantly. You have to be back at the facility a couple of days after you win the Super Bowl like he is. You have to have something in you that pushes you. There's a part in the story that's talking about how he wanted to go through the San Francisco 49ers again. He wanted them to upset the Green Bay Packers in that divisional round. He wanted all of these things to take place so he could go through the road the hard way, be behind in these games, to make the big plays at the end of the game. He's witnessed what it takes to be Aaron Donald. It's a lot of work. It's not just, oh, okay, I'm the best player, I'm the quickest, I'm the fastest. He is, but he also puts in all this work. There's a great breakdown of how the last couple of plays of the Cincinnati Bengals, where he realized that the way that they were lined up, the protections that were coming, the move he was going to have to make, the play that was good, and it happens in the blink of an eye, right? 12 different things he needs to identify right there in that moment, and he does it, and he executes it, and he pulls off the play, and he sacks Joe Burrow, and the Rams are Super Bowl championships. That doesn't just happen. That happens because you have put in an extraordinary amount of work. You have sacrificed everything else there is to sacrifice. Time with friends and family, recreation time, relaxation time, just the study and the discipline and the training and the commitment to your team and to your coaches and to everything that goes into winning one of those games. It's a lot. And maybe, just maybe, he's kind of looking at this and thinking to himself, I don't need to do it like this anymore. I can go do something else for a while. He talks about some time with Michael Jordan, or watching the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary that came out a couple of years ago, and how he went away for a little while and then came back and played some more basketball after that. Maybe that's something that intrigues him. There are a whole bunch of little things in here that make you go, I don't know if it's 100%. I think it's very likely that he comes back. I think that Aaron Donald probably is very concerned about leaving the team in a weird spot, but he also wants to make sure that he gets to live the life he wants to live as a father, as a husband, and all of these other things. I think Aaron Donald will play football for the Rams next year. I really do. But unlike when Sean McVay was saying, hey, listen, I'm going to go, maybe I'm going to consider, I'd like to raise a family one day. TV intrigues me. Amazon's got $100 million on the table. All of these things. I kept saying to myself, there's still way too many things that Sean McVay would like to do with his career. He's 36 years old. He can coach for another 30 years, right? Aaron Donald has done pretty much everything there is to do. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He is a Super Bowl champion. He's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. So when you start hearing somebody say about how do you tell a man, no, your family, you're fine, just come and play football. That's an argument you can't win. You got to just hope that he makes the decision to go the other way. And I'm sure that his kids and everybody else are probably whispering in his ear maybe to do the other thing. It's a tough decision. I mean, it's nice to have options in life for sure. But when I read that for the very first time, I'm like, oh, this is not a zero chance that he walks away from this. I don't think it's a very likely chance, but it's not zero. And anytime something's not zero, it brings up a whole lot of other possibilities along the way. So keep your eye on Aaron Donald. And until we hear him say, I am coming back for sure, don't worry about me. I'm going to be there. I'll be there when training camp starts. You're going to see videos of my bonkers training regimen before you know it. Okay. We'll see it. We will definitely see it. Looking forward to seeing it along the way. Coming up next, I want to talk about knowing your window. Les Snead talked about it, in fact, on my radio show, the Travis and Sliwa show on 710 ESPN a couple of weeks ago. And I think that the Aaron Donald situation that we just talked about plays into that window a great deal, but not before we talk about Built Bars, right? We're pretty comfortably into March, and you're going to try to make sure that you're sticking to some resolutions, or maybe you're just trying to say, look, I'm not going to go to the gym 5 days a week, but I do want to make some better decisions along the way. How about Built Bar, right? We all have to have that little snack during the day. We all need that thing that just kind of, hey, I'd like to have something a little quick, but I don't want to have something terrible for me. Built Bar is the answer. Low calorie, high protein, and all those crummy snacks that you have, in your car, in your backpack, in your desk at work, wherever it is you might be. Get rid of those. Replace them with Built Bar. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. That is just way too many for a little snack like that. Built Bar, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, not farbs, carbs, and 17 grams of protein along the way. Compare that to what I just told you, blows it out of the water. They taste great. They always make sure that everything that they have at Built Bar tastes fantastic. So you don't have to feel like you're punishing yourself with a snack. You get to enjoy it. It's a great decision. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your quarter. Use that promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL, Locked On Experts, covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about Aaron Donald, right? And his decision to, is he going to come back? Is he going to go? This goes together with what I want to talk about right here, namely knowing your window and where you are in the evolution of your team. This kind of comes together with what we were talking about with Russell Wilson yesterday, right? That Russell Wilson, the biggest reason I think that he's no longer in Seattle and on his way to Denver is because the Seahawks realize their window is what it is, and that it's probably closing on the Russell Wilson era. We need to start over and get something jump-started along the way, and they're going to use some of those picks, whether to flip it for another player, whether to use them in the draft to draft their next quarterback, or whatever it is, but they're getting started all over again. Let's put these two things together. The two things together are the window for the Rams, as open as it is right now, and it's been open for a few years now. I mean, you're talking about a team that's been to the Super Bowl twice in the last 4 years, won one, that's won the division 3 times in the last 5 years, that's been to the playoffs 4 times in the last 5 years, and the bad Rams season under Sean McVay, the bad one, air quotes, bad one, it's a 9-win season. They were 9-7. Okay, they have not had a bad season under Sean McVay. They've had varying degrees of success, but all of them successful by the definition. At least you're winning more than you're not. So the window, at least in part, is based on Sean McVay, in part. But here's the other rub, and this is where Aaron Donald comes in, and this is where I think Les Snead realizes what he was talking about with knowing where you are in your window. Are we in a rebuild? Are we at the start of something? Are we at the middle of something? Or are we at the end of something? And I think the Rams are in the middle of something. Because as long as Aaron Donald is still fully committed and still playing at the level that he's been playing at more or less since he came into the league, and as long as you have Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay together, the window's going to be pretty open. You're going to need to move out some other parts, right? I don't know how long Cooper Kupp will be the best wide receiver in football. He is right now. Maybe it'll last another 2 or 3 years. Maybe it'll last another 5 or 6 years. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else knows. I don't know how long Jalen Ramsey will be the number 1 corner in football. Maybe it's next season. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's another couple of seasons. But this is what you need to do when that window is open the way that it is right now. When you have Ramsey, when you have Stafford, when you have Kupp, when you have Donald, when you have Sean McVay, go for it. convince Aaron Donald to come back. Do everything you can. Move heaven and earth. Maybe make some decisions that you might not make otherwise if you were in a different part of that window based on what Aaron Donald's made a couple of comments about if Odell comes back, he'd be more likely to come in. If Von Miller comes back, he'd be more likely to come in. Great. Then give him what he wants. If you can get it done with those guys, then bring them on back in because your window is at a point right now where you have to try to cash it in, where you have to try to find a way to extend it as long as possible. Right? Because let's use the Lakers as an example. The Lakers thought their window was open with AD and LeBron. It shut pretty fast. And when they won that championship, the very next year, they kind of tweaked it a little bit, right? You kind of tweaked it around the edges, and you saw guys like Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder and come in as opposed to, hey, let's run it back with KCP. Let's run it back with Denny Green. Let's run it back with this guy or the next guy. And they didn't. And they tweaked it. Now you have to tweak it again. And now we are where we are right now, where the thing is a mess and it doesn't work at all. And now you're in a part of the window where you're not even quite sure how long is LeBron going to be around? How long is Anthony Davis going to be hurt? How long can you count on him? The Rams are in a really unique spot. The Ram window is open because your quarterback is still highly effective. Your coach is, as crazy as this sounds, your coach is probably still going to be better next year than he was this year. Your coach the year after that, he's still, in the grand scheme of things, relatively green. Okay, that you typically, by the time you've done something 4 or 5 years, you're pretty good at it. You figured it out. And if you're a prodigy, like I believe Sean McVay is, you've probably figured it out better than most. But what if that guy's got 10 years experience? What if he's got 15? You don't think he's going to be better at it at that point? I absolutely do. Aaron Donald falls into that same category. Jalen Ramsey, like we mentioned a minute ago. You need to find a place for these guys to go for it. You need to find a way to continue to push while that window is open, because when it closes fast. Aaron Donald said something about Sean McVay in the Sports Illustrated piece that I thought was interesting. It was, as long as you're here, I want to be a part of your legacy. I want to play for you. Okay, done. Deal. Where do we go? Where do we sign? How do you figure this out? And I'm sure that Sean McVay's looking at this the same way. Now, it's a little bit different because Sean McVay knows, Aaron Donald, if Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive player of all time, and he might be, he's got another, 3 or 4 years of that, probably tops. Then we're in double-digit years. And that point, you're talking extreme outlier if he's still at that point, which he kind of already is. So you're pushing the window there. Matthew Stafford, how many more years does he have? This is what Les Snead was getting at. This is what he was talking about when you talk about knowing where you are in your window. How open is it? How many more years does Aaron Donald have? Matthew Stafford have? Sean McVay have? Cooper Kupp? Go for it when it's open. And they are. And they continue to push, and they continue to try things, and they continue to try to find ways to make the team a little better, while at the very same time making sure that the pieces that crack that window open in the first place stay incredibly viable. And they have. And I expect them to do it again next year. And especially when you start to look around the rest of the conference. Aaron Rodgers is back in Green Bay. Okay, they're going to be a tough team. No question about it. San Francisco's got a quarterback question. Maybe it's Lance. Maybe it's not. Maybe they bring in a veteran quarterback. But San Francisco's going to give the Rams some trouble. They're a good team too. Beyond the rest of that, it feels like maybe there's a lot of flux. Seattle is in a weird spot. Tampa is in a weird spot. The Cowboys are always in a weird spot just by definition of being the Cowboys. The rest of the teams in the NFC East don't feel like they're getting ready to make that leap. The rest of the teams in the North, not so much. The rest of the teams in the South, I don't know. Is Carolina going to be good? Is Tampa going to be any good? I should say New Orleans, Atlanta. And it doesn't feel like it really. Doesn't mean they won't be, but your opportunity is here. Know your window. Know the other team's windows. Know when they're maybe in a down cycle and you can take advantage of that. I think these are all very good news for the Rams, but this is why I think you're going to continue to see them for the next couple of years at least continue to push because of guys like Donald, because of guys like Kupp, because of guys like Ramsey and Stafford, and how much longer those guys can be at the very best that they are. Nothing lasts forever, right? Kurt Warner's not here anymore. Marsh Falk's not here anymore. Guys turn over, and once it happens, now you got to go finding the next guy. And we know how long it can be before that next guy actually comes on in. So know your window for sure. Speaking of windows, that's what I want to get into next. The window in Seattle, which directly affects the Rams, obviously, is a defensive opponent. Is it closed? Is it wide open? And could Deshaun Watson crack it open a little further? And what does that mean for the rest of the division? That's coming up next. Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. My name is Travis Rogers. I host the Rams pregame show, halftime show, and postgame show on their flagship station, ESPN LA 710. make sure you click that subscribe button. Always like it when you click the subscribe button. That's good for me. That's good for you. You get your Rams content every single day. Okay, so the Seahawks make the big deal yesterday. They send Russell Wilson to the Broncos, and I'm still not quite sure why the Broncos think that puts them over the top. And I know this isn't Locked On Broncos. They've got their own channel for sure, but why? Are the Broncos the best team in that division? No, it's still Kansas City. Are the Broncos the second best team in that division? No, Raiders made the playoffs. I mean, Raiders, maybe weren't great, but they weren't a bad football team. Chargers should have been in the playoffs. The Chargers did everything they could to keep themselves out, and they succeeded, but they felt like they're a better team than the Broncos. Do they feel with Russell Wilson in Denver that they're better? I don't know what it is. Anyway, that's aside. But the question that directly affects the Rams is what happens now in Seattle, and who do the Rams have to deal with? Because as good as Russell Wilson is, the Rams had pretty good success against him. Aaron Donald had pretty good success against Russell Wilson, especially the last couple of years. It felt like Wilson had maybe slowed down a little bit, been a little more cautious with those running, and not maybe quite as effective as he'd been previously. There are a whole bunch of quarterbacks out there. Guys are actually moving around a little bit. We saw Carson Wentz go to the Commanders. And if you don't think I had to stop and force myself to say Commanders, well, I did. So there's an opening in Indy. We know that Mitch Trubisky is possibly going to go to the Giants. So these are mid guys that are going to move around a lot. And because he didn't play football at all last year, I wonder if a lot of people have kind of forgotten about the fact that Deshaun Watson, now let me be very clear about what I'm about to say. I'm not talking about Deshaun Watson, the guy. I'm talking about Deshaun Watson, the football player. Okay, we'll get to the guy in just a minute. Deshaun Watson, the football player, is tremendous. Tremendous. The Texans paid him his money last year to stay home. Leave us alone. Don't come around here. We don't want you. We'd rather go lose just about every single week than have to deal with the mess that you're going to bring to our organization. That being said, that man can play football. He's a very, very good quarterback. There may or may not be some resolution to Deshaun Watson, the guy, coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We, not to get too far into the weeds, but there's some very ugly accusations against him that have been out there for the better part of a year now, and yet they still haven't moved the ball down the field, at least not publicly, as far as whether he's going to be charged with a crime, whether he's just going to be sued civilly, whether or not he's going to get suspended from the NFL. You just don't know. Except we do know that he's a very, very good football player. So the Seahawks have to be doing that math in their head, right? And the math in the head has to be something along the lines of, A, can we sell this at home? Can we bring in a guy that's accused of what Deshaun Watson is accused of? Proven, time will tell, right? We'll see. I don't know. I don't know. But can you bring him in and say, oh, he's our guy, without letting the thing play out legally, and say, oh, everybody just do the whole everybody deserves a second chance thing, which teams do all the time. Will that go over well in Seattle? And does he fit into what you're trying to do? The first part is the part that you just don't know about. The second part is Deshaun Watson would make them a pretty darn good football team pretty quickly. He's one of those guys that can juice it, right? That can just absolutely take you from – the Texans were nowhere. Deshaun Watson shows up, Texans are pretty darn good. Deshaun Watson leaves, the Texans are one of the worst teams in the league. When they played the Rams last year, I don't know if I've ever seen a team that bad in my entire life. And then they played – Jacksonville Jaguars a couple of weeks later, and maybe that was actually worse. But the Texans were terrible. They weren't terrible when Deshaun Watson was around. So if Deshaun Watson does go to Seattle, and we've heard about him going to Miami, and then Miami said we're out, I have a feeling that it's going to be a minute until he plays, but somebody somewhere is going to give that guy a chance to play. Somebody somewhere is going to say, you know what, we can deal with the heat for bringing him in here because, like, as uncomfortable and ugly as it might be, if he comes in and starts winning football games right away, people will get over it real fast. I'm not saying they should. I'm saying they will, right? We've seen it too many times with too many different guys in this league and in other leagues that come with a whole bunch of really ugly baggage that people move on from very, very quickly if you're good at football or baseball or whatever sport it might be. So if they're willing to take the short-term hit and try that and bring him in to replace Russell Wilson, and there have been rumblings out there that may be a destination for him, NFC West looks a lot different. You got to play Deshaun Watson twice a year? Nah, I'd rather not. I'd rather play Drew Lock, who went back the other way. Give me Geno Smith twice a year. Give me some version of Mitch Trubisky or whoever might be coming the other way. Ryan Fitzmagic, right? One of these guys that's not oh boy. If this guy could, not get in trouble, not get accused of getting in trouble, or whatever the legal splitting of hairs that may be, and just play, I don't need to play that guy. He's going to beat you occasionally. He's good. Get him right. Russell Wilson was pretty darn good. And the idea of them getting him out and bringing someone else in, you think, okay, they're going to go through the rebuild process, maybe draft a guy, develop a guy, see what can happen, maybe bounce around the free agent market a little bit until you find the right guy. Deshaun Watson? Yeah, all right. I don't know if Aaron Donald wants to chase him around. I don't know if anybody wants to chase him around. He's a very, very good football player. And if he, in fact, does come to Seattle, it's a very interesting moment for them. And for the division at large. I don't know if anybody's going to bite on him until he has some sort of resolution in his legal world, which may take a while because there's a lot of people that are coming out and saying a lot of different things about what he did. But we'll see. Crazier things have happened. Guys have gotten back into the league for a whole bunch of different reasons over a whole bunch of different years. He would not be the first to come back. And if he does, I'd rather see him somewhere other than Seattle. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. As for your second listen, make that the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring you the NFL Draft, and they bring it to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It, too, is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up on the next Locked On Rams, Bobby Wagner coming home to L.A., Don't laugh. It could happen. The Seahawks moved away from him as well. Until then, whose house? It's Locked On Rams' house.